can I just add one thing about that Huntington trip? I forgot about this. It's actually sort of cool. I was so beat. I went through a car wash in Woodstock, and I forgot that my pack was in the back of my truck, right? So I washed my pack.
Probably a good thing.
And now it smells beautiful and it's nice and shiny. You got to try it out.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Do that, or either like it's not a bad call. So you just was there anything in there that got wet that shouldn't have gotten wet?
Oh hell yeah! But next time I'll take the important stuff out and then do it.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, back to you.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
All right, Stomp, we're on episode 25, so we're getting to that age where we have to stop being responsible.
Oh, screw that, man. It's never going to happen. Although I am being responsible at the moment. I'm not drinking. Not tonight.
Yeah, you can't drink anything. So you're doing you got a procedure going on? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, it's the old fart procedure. Colonoscopy. I guess they happen after you're 50, so this will be actually my second, so I know what to expect, but so I've been doing the prep all day, and it's a nightmare. Oh my God, it's a nightmare. Like literally started at noon, and it's 7:30 now, and it's still at it. It's like just disgusting. So fun stuff, man.
So I'm almost at that age where I'm getting close to 50, but I honestly, like, everybody I know has had colonoscopies, like, but it's one of those things where, you know how sometimes you talk about things for so long and you're at the point where you're like, oh, well, it's just too embarrassing to like admit that you don't know what it is. Like, I don't even know what a colonoscopy is. I'll tell you what I think it is, and then you can tell me if I'm right. If it's what I think it is, I feel like they stick like a hose up your butt and blast you with water and then clean you all out. But I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm not sure about the water part. I thought it was air. I think they put a beautiful looking hose up your bottom, and apparently E. coli free. Knock on wood. Hope that's true. And
so there is a hose. There's a hose involved, though. I knew that.
Oh yeah, there sure is. Yeah, it's like an amazing multi-purpose hose. It fills your intestines up with air, so that the doctor can get a better look at the walls of your intestines to see if there's any, polyps going on or any inflammation and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, I guess after the first, you don't have to do this for like another 10 years unless, of course, you have start having some symptoms of whatever, gastric pain or any unusual symptoms. So, can't wait to get this over with.
Thoughts and prayers. So you're going to be a little hangry tonight. So
we're
going to talk about
and that's exactly why. Too. Yeah, well, that's why I'm claiming that you are the meanest co-host in the universe, because you want to talk about food, and I can't have any food. I had a yogurt this morning at about 6:00. And then I went hiking with a friend, and I can't have any food until after the procedure. So this is going to be a rough one for the old Stomp.
Oh shit! Well, all right, well, we'll get this done quick. So we were supposed to have a guest tonight, but like we're just like legit. We're just not. It's just not happening logistically. So it's just me and Stomp tonight, and we'll cover the show summary in a minute. But we'll have some guests back. We got to figure it out. But anyway, it's just scheduling issues. We're all super busy.
Yeah.
But before we get into I had a couple of things to just kind of riff on here. But one thing, I wanted to ask you a question. Flags on the 48 is coming up this weekend.
Right.
Are you hiking that? And if so, like, do you want to disclose where you're going to be so people might be able to meet you, or do you want to keep that quiet?
I'm not, actually. I'm tied up with a statewide search and rescue training.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, from 8 until like 4, so I'm going to be missing in action. But in a way, I'm actually sort of glad, because part of the training incorporates the Black Hawk and this and that. I think it's going to be a really patriotic time and just a somber time. But yeah, I wish I was joining everybody. I love that event. How about you? Are you joining? Are you going out?
No, I burned all my matches with hiking this weekend, so I have like some family stuff, so I gotta stay in the land of massholes for the weekend. So, but anyway, but people will be listening to this, and if you are doing flags on the 48, best of luck. If you're posting pictures or whatever, give us a shout out on whatever social media you're on. I don't really know how Instagram works. They can tag us or something, but have a good time. And I did hike it last year, and I went to Jefferson, and it was a crowded area, but it was cool, very, very inspiring. So hopefully the flags on the 48 people will have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll miss it for sure. But hey, we have other stuff going on, especially with our busy season coming up. We have to get training, so it's gonna be good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I got reprimanded for a pronunciation issue that, again, remember I was just talking about how, like, is there some things that, like, you do it so much, or you just talk about it so much that you can't bring it up, that you don't realize you're wrong. And apparently I pronounced the Belknaps incorrectly.
Yeah.
I had no idea that there was a K that was silent. I always called it the Belknaps.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I had no idea, but that was brought up by a donation, actually, and it was by Jen Davis, who brought that to our attention. And apparently she's a native, and she grew up working at the malls and this and that up here in New Hampshire and in that region. So she knew, and it's been driving her nuts, apparently. So yeah, and
sorry, Jen.
That spurred on the idea that we can use a translate, like Google Translate or whatever, to confirm these things. And I posted it on the story, and it's actually a good idea. But she's right; it's like Belknap. And I've since tried a couple other things, like I hate to say it, I'm in the confessional, but Jewel was Jewel according to Google. But hey, it's Google; you can't trust them for anything, right? Ajiakachuk is the craziest thing I've ever heard. You'll have to try it yourself. But yeah, so if there's any disputes moving forward, let's use Translate, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so I apologize to all my Lakes region friends, but I've been saying Belknaps for like 10 years now, and no one has ever once corrected me. So I feel like there's a lot of massholes. Yep. What is it again, dude?
Belknap.
Oh, Google. I hate Google. Anyway, but nobody has ever corrected me, so I apologize. But like, I've never pretended to be a local. Like, I am a masshole. I spend a lot of time in New Hampshire and Maine, but I just can't pick up all the lingo. So you should know better. You're a local.
Yeah, well, I'm a new local. I'm not claiming to have lived here all my life, though. Like Coos. I thought it was Coos. It's Coos.
It is Coos County.
So we're definitely, I'll give you all the bushwhacking hints you want, but don't come looking for advice on words from me, that's for sure.
So the Wood Devils live in Coos County. I thought I heard it said that way before. But all right, sponsors, coffee, all that stuff. You want to get that out of the way?
We have 5 from Jen, and again, she brought up the whole pronunciation thing. Quote, someone got us 3 coffees, which is very cool. Sharpen the Sword, that's a nice moniker, bought us a coffee. And oftentimes these folks will give us comments and criticisms and stuff like that, so it's pretty cool. And a big shout out to our sponsor at Reckless Brewing, where you'll enjoy the best food, craft beer, and fun. Located near the Five Corners and just minutes from Franconia Notch, home to many of the best hiking summits in the White Mountains. How'd you like that?
That was pretty professional. That was way better than I could ever do.
Yeah, we're working on that stuff because honestly, Reckless is legit in the heart of Franconia. It's minutes from a lot of these hiking trails that everybody's going to, so give them a visit. They're really close, and it's probably the closest spot you can go to after a hike.
Very cool. And also, one other thing, just as a reminder, we do on the slasherpodcast.com website, we have a section for sponsorships and donations. If you're interested in sponsorship or us advertising for you or putting in a good word, if you are donating directly to the New Hampshire Outdoor Council, which supports search and rescue efforts in New Hampshire. All you have to do is just send us a receipt showing your proof of donation, and we'll give you a plug, a shout out. We'll work out the details once you've sent over that info. But definitely take a look at that if you're an organization. We're happy to give you a shout out here. We don't have a huge audience, but I feel like we've got enough people now listening that it might be worth spending a couple of bucks and donating to the New Hampshire Outdoor Council to get your name on here.
And they support all the volunteer teams in New Hampshire. So when teams need gear, they can provide the money, the grant monies to support the teams in those ventures. Ooh, I may have to take occasional breaks here and there. And what I'll do is I'll edit the dead space out. So that we'll keep this real honest and transparent, but I'll get rid of the dead space, okay? Because I'm still chugging down this wonderful Miralax 64 ounces of water concoction.
Yeah, you should just cut this part out. No one wants to hear your old man issues. But let's transition to the show summary. So tonight we are going to focus on some recent hikes that we've done in the White Mountains and beyond. Looking to get out into areas where you can avoid the crowds. We've got you covered with some summaries of recent hikes, and we are also going to review a number of search and rescue calls that have occurred over the last week. One of those includes a car break-in on the summit of Mount Washington. So no matter how obscure the parking lot seems, no vehicle is safe while parked in the White Mountains. Later in the show, we will wrap up by talking about nutrition on the trail. So trying to figure out the best food to eat while hiking, we will give you our opinions on what works. I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
All right, so you already said that you have no beer, so I am down to my last. I'm drinking a Smutty Nose, so I'm down to my last beer in that Smutty Nose variety pack that I've been sitting on for the last 3 weeks. So I've got the Old Brown Dog, which is the same beer that I had last week, so it's good.
Yummy.
It's good. I haven't drank these kind of beers in a long time. I used to, where I used to drink these beers was Medieval Manor in Boston. Would have that brown dark ale that they would pour.
The only thing I know about that place,
$2 a pitcher.
Yeah, the only thing I know about that place is that they would give people a hassle about having to go to the bathroom. Is that true?
Yeah, it was part of the show. They would give you a hard time or whatever. So yeah, you kind of knew not to get. If you did get up, you had to wait until a bunch of people got up so that you were kind of it's one of those places where you want to hide.
That's really funny. Good times.
Yeah, but
is that still there?
I don't know if that. I have no idea.
Huh.
I have no idea. I remember it used to be by that. It was by that homeless shelter place. Right off of 93, I forget, but yeah. I my guess is probably not to Google that, but Medieval Manor, that was a good place to go in the 90s if you were a college student. So, but that's all we got for beer talk at this point, so I got to pick up some more Reckless, but other than that, I think we can move on to segment 1, which is a deep dive on recent hikes. So I was talking with Stomp earlier, and we both were kind of comparing notes, and we've done enough hikes over the last week or so since the last show that we were let's just do a whole segment breaking down some of these hikes that we've been on, and we there's a fair amount of content here. So Stomp's been off bushwhacking, and I've been off doing a couple of cool hikes, and I also had a big epiphany that I wanted to run by Stomp as well, which I think might be interesting to the folks that are looking to get out there. So anyway, Stomp, do you want to kick this off with the summary of some of the stuff that you've done recently?
Yeah, let's start with the Huntingtons. Some time ago, Steve Smith had told me about his white whale, his elusive mountain that he's tried to get but just never attained, and that was Huntington West. The Huntingtons are proximate to the Kangamangas Highway, and essentially from the hairpin, the famous hairpin, which juts into the Hancock Trail, I believe. At the closest peak is about 0.8 from the hairpin itself, and that is Huntington West. Just east of that, you have Mount Huntington itself, and then south you have Huntington South, and then a little off to the east is, I think that's how it works. So it's Huntington South, and then Huntington East. So Saturday's adventure, it was pretty crazy. I drove by. This is real early. I drove by. It had to be like 6:30 or so. Lincoln Woods was absolutely bombed. I posted a picture on the story later after this bushwhack about it being a couple miles long. I just could not believe the volume of cars. Made a quick pit stop there at Lincoln Woods and then made my way over to the hairpin. Thankfully, there were about 2 or 3 spots open. And when you're in the hairpin, if you're looking towards, let's say, where the start of the Hancock Trail is, 90 degrees to the right, you'll see maybe 50 yards of steep, wet ledges, maybe 15 feet high or so. My plan was to approach it straight up past those ledges. So basically, I skirted around the ledges, found a way past them. The secondary approach would be actually from the Hancock Trail, maybe about a mile in, and then bushwhack straight up to the right towards the ridge line. When you come back from, say, Conway on the Kangamangas, before you really dip into Lincoln, you see that really huge series of cliffs. That is Huntington West. That's the summit that I did this weekend. So
Got it.
to give you some perspective, and when you're coming down that long hill and you see the cliff, to the right, that's where these other summits are approximately located. Great time. Really, really, I got up to the top of the first one, and my intention was to do all 4 and just get them over with, but my head wasn't in the game for whatever reason, so You ever have one of those moments at a summit, and you just can't decide what to do, and you spend 5 or 10 minutes deciding, should I go to the next section or not? I've come to the point in my life where when I'm in that mode, I just bail. I'm not going to fight with myself. I'm out. Obviously, my mind's telling me something here. So, yeah. So I'll be back for another round on those.
Yeah. I mean, I never really, I don't do the bushwhacks that much, so I don't really go back and forth, go, no go. I mean, I've dealt with that with some weather situations before. Matter of fact, I had that where I turned around on Osseo Trail over the winter. I just wasn't feeling it, and I just wanted to bail. So I've had a few moments like that, but I think for this one here, so I'm looking at the map here, and that's one of the things. It's a good point. When you go over the Kangamangas Pass, you can almost reach out and touch those peaks that are sort of surrounding that pass, and then like you said, that cliff right there.
It looks that way.
That you drive to. It's you can reach out and touch them, but when you really look at the trail system, there was never trails built out to, it would seem to me it would make a whole lot of sense for, there's a little 180 turn below Kangamangas Pass that points right to Mount Huntington. It seems to me a pull off with a short little trail to Mount Huntington would make a whole lot of sense being right there. And then also right at the pass, there's a couple of open peaks that you could just basically hike over to that are 100 feet above the pass.
Right.
But no, it doesn't seem like there's that whole road area there where the Kangamangas peaks out just doesn't get a lot of hiking traffic, other than the only options you have are bushwhacking.
Yeah, and that's how. Steve has done those other ones. He's gone to the Pemi Overlook cutoff and cut over towards the southern and the eastern peaks. But yeah, you're right. There's no. Those are easy. Those are reachable, but there's just no trail system at all. And I can tell you, it's pretty steep. Going up to West was steep as hell, and it was fairly wet still from the recent rains. It was complicated. It was not as thick as, say, Liberty. So in that sense, it was just sort of a grind, but it wasn't just bushes in your face the whole time. So that was a really nice time. I'll be back. I really enjoyed it. Nice. I thought it was going to be harder than it was. Let's say that. The last person in the register who signed in at the top was Amy Pattenoud. I believe that's her last name, but Amy is a prolific bushwhacker. She's done the 500 highest, I believe, in the warmer months, but she's working on her winter now. I could be wrong about that. But she was there in March last year. So that's pretty intense.
Was the last person.
That's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Well, and for the audience, so that you understand what Stomp was talking about, is these peaks that don't have trails to them that they bushwhack. Typically, what you'll see is a PVC canister that is basically strapped to a tree to mark the summit. And inside these canisters, you can like unscrew them. I haven't done, as a matter of fact, I think the few times I've done these is with you. And you basically unscrew the canister, and then there'll be a little logbook in there where you can sort of mark down and put your name and the date that you've been on the peak.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, for some of these 500 peaks, it's a fairly exclusive niche of people doing this stuff. You know, I think the hunting. Some of these peaks may be on the highest 100 or 200 or whatever. I don't have that in front of me, but some of these are, I believe. So you may have a larger crowd going to some of these peaks, but for the 500.
So again, Mount Huntington is right on the hip and turn trailhead. So if you go into the Hancocks, it's just up to the right, in case you're interested.
Yeah. And then today, I'll just zip through these quickly. I reunited with one of my favorite bushwhacking buddies. And she's a really good friend and just a blast to be on trail with. It's Danielle Normand. Sorry, I should put that in Google Translate, I guess. Danielle's awesome. She's prolific, and she's. This is a huge plug for her because I just think she's great. Great instinct. She's fearless, and she's competent when you're bushwhacking. That's what you want when you're out there in these random remote places. So today we went into a region which is off of exit 23, past New Hampton, into Alexandria, down this road called Orange Road, which is interesting because it's south of Mount Cardigan and Mount Orange. And there's a little family of 500 highest peaks. And today we did Melvin Mountain, which is 2,177. And then we went over the call to Barber Mountain, Barber, and that I posted a picture of that. There's a view of Cardigan from this summit, which is just stunning. And you can see Orange and you can see Cardigan. It's probably 5 miles away to the south, I'm guessing.
All right. So you guys were kind of messing around in that area where Mount Plymouth is and Mowgli that we've been talking about a little bit near Cardigan.
Ooh, much further south. Yeah, much further. Yeah, south. That stuff is north of Cardigan.
Okay.
Yeah. And then finally we finished up on Hutchins Hill. We still had time. I had to get back here to start this prep for this damn thing tomorrow. But we did Hutchins Hill, which was another bushwhack, but we did a little research and found this, what I would say is probably a ski, Nordic ski circuit. So we just took some of these trails up to the summit, and that was really cool. So it was a really good day. Currently, I stand at 129 out of 500. Yeah, getting there.
This is the Hampshire 500. Do you think you've missed some peaks, or do you think your number's pretty good?
No, it's solid. I have a list at home. Yeah. Okay. Danielle's at like 237. She's actually using CalTopo, and she made her own. She's crazy. She's doing like a million lists. Can't even tell you. It's crazy. But she made her own list for the 500, and she's picking them off. So the information's out there. Just look up New Hampshire highest 500.
Yeah, and I don't know much about this list, but I do know, like, I think I'm in the Facebook group, and I do know, like, every once in a while somebody will say, like, oh, you can't go to this one anymore because it got bought by, like, a private owner.
We ran into that today.
It gets a little weird and tricky, right?
Yeah. Well, honestly, somebody had done this first set, Melvin and Barber, a couple months back, and it wasn't a problem. We went today. There were some areas that were posted now. So, property rights change. And the people on the there is a 500 highest Facebook page, and there's a lot of, information that circulates in there and questions like, hey, what about property rights here? Hey, how do I get past this and that? Oftentimes, if there is a property issue, the owners are generally fine about it, and you just knock on the door and say, hey, we're just doing this. Mind if we just sneak through here, whatever? Not too many issues, but you do have to be aware of that because some of these are more off the beaten path and harder to get to.
No, is hunting a factor now, or is that not happening yet? I feel like beer season started.
Yes, I believe it has. Yeah, so that is a good point. So, doing these, you're generally wearing bright, high visibility colors. That helps. Yeah, we didn't see any activity though in terms of other people, but that's a great point.
All right. Well, I'll put some links to that area on the show notes, and I've never heard any of these because they're. I think when you're talking about the New England 100 or the New Hampshire 100 or 500 highest, it's you're going to get some obscure peaks here, but it's worth exploring around.
Yeah. Now, how about you? What you been up to?
So I got 2 hikes in this weekend. I had like a family day planned, I think, on Saturday. We were just going to hang out by the pond and chill out, which we did do, but like I wanted to get some hiking in, so I just went to Burnt Meadow Mountain and Stone Mountain, which are like the local hikes, right, probably about 5-10 minutes away from where my father-in-law lives. And I typically will go there and do like a 4.5 mile loop, but this time I wanted to go a little longer, so I put together a route where I went directly up to Burnt Meadow, and the views out in the western Maine, out in the, like Cornish and Hiram and Ossipee and all that area are really very impressive as you get up to the peak of Burnt Meadow. Mm-hmm. And then from the peak, I went off the backside. It got some views out in the Whites and the Sandwich Range, and then hiked over to Stone Mountain, where again you get another view of the west. Came back down Stone Mountain and actually bushwhacked up the backside of Burnt Meadow, where there's a huge rock slide off the backside. So I went off trail, went up the rock slide, reconnected through this giant blueberry field. A lot of blueberries are gone at this point, and then went back over to Burnt Meadow. So it's like a small hike typically, but I was able to put together a 6-mile route with about 2,500 feet of elevation in the small mountain in western Maine. So
that's awesome. Yeah, the pictures look beautiful. A lot of ledge and everything else.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's awesome. And matter of fact, one cool thing, I hike there all the time, so I probably hiked this mountain 50 times. And there's an old guy that hikes there. I think at one point he was doing it every day. But I see him when I go there, so I stopped. I talked to him because I was thinking about that episode that we did with Martin Pisani about like hiking keeping you young. So I asked the guy. He's like, I'm 89. So I was asking him if he went to the peak. He's like, I can't get up there anymore. It's too much. But he's like, I go up to there's an outlook, and then I turn around. And I asked him, I was like, do you think hiking is keeping you young? And he's like, it probably is. He's like, it can't hurt, but he's like, it's also wearing me down a little bit, but he's like, it really doesn't matter at this point. He's like, I'm just getting out here. So he's a nice guy. He's like kind of bent over. He had the old like wooden stick. He looked like Gandalf walking down the trail. It was pretty cool.
Huh. That's great. Yeah, I mean, any activity is going to wear you down, but geez, to be expected.
Yeah.
Good.
Hopefully that'll be me and you stomp.
Oh, yeah.
Someday. We'll see.
Can I just add one thing about that Huntington trip? I forgot about this. It's actually sort of cool. I was so beat. I went through a car wash in Woodstock, and I forgot that my pack was in the back of my truck, right? So I washed my pack.
Probably a good thing.
And now it smells beautiful, and it's nice and shiny. You got to try it out.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You do that, or either like... Yeah, that's not a bad call. So you just is there anything in there that got wet that it shouldn't have gotten wet?
Oh, hell yeah. But next time I'll take the important stuff out and then do it.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
So anyway, back to you.
Very good. Nice. Well, one other hike I did here. So have you done the Red Ridge Trail on the Moats before? Have you ever hiked that?
No, I haven't. I read about it and I plan to get there, but I mean, the Moats look awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're amazing. So this is a top 10 trail on the Whites for me. Like, if you're looking to do a hike, I couldn't believe this because I had it in my head. For some reason, there's been a number of rescues on this trail with people taking wrong turns. And for some reason, I had it in my head just because there'd been a few rescues that, like, this was, like, a trail that wasn't often traveled and wasn't, like, very well marked. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Like, I did a clockwise loop, so it starts at Diana's Bath. You know that like touristy place where everybody hangs out. Mm-hmm. So I got there around 7 in the morning, and there was like 2 other cars in the parking lot, and I just got out, I have a sticker, so I just went rolling down to Diana's Bath, and like I saw one couple coming back with a baby, so that must have been one car. And then when I got to Diana's Bath, I wanted to take a couple of pictures, so I went out into the Diana's Bath, and I realized I was like interrupting like a photo shoot with these kids were doing like a photo shoot, and I was getting in the way of their pictures, so I had to get out of there pretty quickly. But when you go past Diana's Bath, like it is that section of trails there where the moats are, it's probably the closest thing that you're going to get to feeling like you're in the Pacific Northwest in the Whites, I think.
What?
Like I've been out west a few times, so I get a sense of what the vibe is.
Yeah.
And it's like the trails are a lot wider. So whoever maintains those trails, the trails are usually like, probably like 3 feet wide, whereas most trails are a lot smaller than that. So they're wide, and the tree growth is just more spread out, and it just has that Pacific Northwest vibe to it. I don't know why.
Towering pines.
Yeah, exactly. Towering
Yeah,
pines,
gotcha.
and it's really nice. And then and it's like a 3 mile approach to get. It's pretty much flat, so it's a 3 mile approach to get to the ascent to up the Red Ridge and then to the moats. So once you start going, you're almost immediately above tree line, and you're walking from ledge to ledge. So it feels like you're looking backwards the whole time, not even really paying attention. So my experience on Red Ridge, basically, like, you do a little bit of climbing, turn around. It was cloud covered as I was in the lower section. I got up to another ledge, and all of a sudden the clouds started clearing, and you just see Kearsarge North pop out. And you'd be like, oh, wow, that's a really cool view. Like, I'm almost at level eyesight of the clouds, and then Kearsarge North is just popping out right in front of me. And then I
gotcha,
look over,
yeah.
and I can see the double heads, and all of a sudden, like, I just sat there, and I could see the clouds just clearing out, and I could start seeing, like, the green hills and all you can see across the valley in North Conway.
Yeah.
And then you keep making your way up, and eventually, like, I got close to the ridge of the Moat Mountain Range ridge, and the views are just amazing. You're a little bit above the clouds, but so close to the clouds that you could almost touch them. So it was just one of those days, and you get up to the ridge, and then North Moat is, everybody talks about Carrigain as being like the one where you're in the middle of the Whites, but North Moat is the same way. You can see every peak from North Moat.
Yeah, it sounds great. Now, is Red Ridge that literal ridge that comes up from the east towards the high point, that really open, ledgy trail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty open, and it's like sort of like a cutoff where you can, if you're coming from South Moat, if you wanted to bypass north and get to Diana's Bath, you would take Red Ridge. But I did it as a loop, clockwise, going up Red Ridge, then hitting the Moat Mountain Trail, going, and it's probably another mile or so to get to actually get to North Moat, and then you come down the Moat Trail from there. And it turns out to be like a 10-mile loop. It's about 3,000 feet of elevation gain, and definitely top 10 hike for me. Red Ridge, top 10 trail in the Whites for sure. So if you're looking for a place to go, I didn't see a single person either. I went on Labor Day Monday, and not a single person on trail. I didn't see anybody until I got back to Diana's Bath.
Yeah, I heard that from a bunch of people, that it was sort of quiet for that Monday, which is strange. I think a lot of people left for some reason. There was heavy traffic pretty early.
Yeah. I did, as I was walking towards Diana's Bath, I saw like a group of people. They were walking up, and they were lost. They were like, they asked me a question, and I kind of explained to them where they needed to go. And one of the people said to me, they were like, you look like one of those people that's like actually hikes. Like, that's really cool. I said, well, thank you.
What a surprise.
Well, thanks.
Jeez, that's too funny.
But I did, I had an epiphany stomp on this Red Ridge hike.
Okay.
That I never really thought about it that much, but I had this epiphany about hiking, and I want to throw this out there just for the audience to see if anybody else sort of feels this way. But I like hikes that involve a long, flat approach. And this is one of the, I was like hiking, and I was like, I really like it when I'm not climbing right away.
Yeah.
And there's not that many trails in the Whites like that. Usually it's just like, get on the escalator and start walking. But Red Ridge is great because you go in about almost 3 miles, and there's no elevation gain. And the reason why I like it is because typically I'm doing longer hikes, so 9, 10, 12 miles or whatever. I like being able to go on a flat approach and like banging out those beginning miles like quickly.
Okay.
So like I got 3 miles done in an hour, and then I feel like, all right, even though I know I got another 7 miles to go, like it feels like you've accomplished something early. And then I think it relaxes me. I'm like, okay, I already done a lot of distance in a short amount of time. Now I can take my time and enjoy it.
Does that extrapolate out to Lincoln Woods Trail to Pond Cliff?
It does. So and again, I don't know how many people feel the same way I do, but like I said, like I like the long flat approaches, and then I'll hit the climb. So for me, I put together
It's
a
like
list.
a warm up.
Exactly. Like I got the warm up, and then I
Yeah.
also feel like, all right, I banged out all these miles.
Sure.
So the prototypical hike that like screams this to me is the Hancocks. So that's like that, like, hike out 2-3 miles to get to the climb, and then it's straight up
Yeah.
across the ridge, straight down, and then flat again. So that's the one that like stands out the most. But Rattle River is another one. When you're going out to like Shelburne, Mariah, or you're going to Mariah, like you got that like 3 miles or so where you're pretty flat coming up Rattle River. And there's a few other ones. Lincoln Woods, like you talked about, is one of them.
Flume.
Red Ridge, like I just talked about, and then Great Gulf is the other one
Yeah.
that I think of.
Yeah.
What was the
I
one
think,
you said?
Oh, Flume Slide Trail. It's
that's another one.
that's like 4 miles before you get to the ascent. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I haven't done that, so I'll be looking forward to doing
my
that.
God, that's Phew. There's a lot of controversy about that trail lately. It's just like people want to destroy it, redirect it, do something to it because it's very dangerous. That's for another story, another tale.
Yeah. Very good. Well, speaking of tails, do you want to move on to section? So anyway, hopefully that was some good hikes for people. Get some ideas going for doing some bushwhacks, doing some regular hikes, and anything else you want to add before we go to the next segment?
No, I think we're good to go. Moving on.
All right. Search and rescue. Do you want me to read this one, or you want to read this one about the Pennsylvania father and daughter?
Why don't you take it? I'm going to take a little nature break for a moment. How's that sound?
Yeah, I don't want to think about your nature break, but yeah, that's fine. I can take this one. Hey, you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Very
You
good.
took a break.
So I took a break. I just
I'll
like
edit it
felt
out.
weird, like going without you. But anyway, so Stomp father and daughter got in trouble on Mount Washington. So Tuesday, August 31st, 3:20 p.m., the Fish and Game got a 911 call for a lost hiker and her father near the Chandler Brook Trail on Mount Washington. So this was a 43-year-old female from Cambridge, Maryland. Cambridge, Maryland, not Massachusetts. She had stated that she said that her and her father had gotten lost off trail while hiking when her GPS died. And that left her father and her, I guess, stuck. So she left. Probably sounds like she left to go find a cell connection. And the father was not doing well, and she didn't have any service. So yeah, so she took off to go find a cell connection, and finally got in touch with a conservation officer from New Hampshire Fish and Game, and they were able to guide her back to the trail to get to the auto road. So apparently what they were doing was, the original plan was to hike the auto road. But for whatever reason, somebody told them that the auto road is not open to foot traffic, so they decided to redirect to the Great Gulf Trailhead and started up, looks like the Great Gulf Trail, and then eventually, like, that Great Gulf Trail gets a little wonky, like the Madison Gulf
Oh, sure.
connects there, and then eventually if you stay on the Great Gulf, you'll get to that Chandler Brook Trail, which connects, basically it's like a shortcut over to the auto road. You know where that spills out, Stomp, is where you had done that like recon mission to find the old trail off the auto road.
It's at the top of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a bypass there. So
It's pretty steep.
Sounds like, oh yeah, yeah. That's a tough area.
Absolutely.
So somehow the daughter made it out there. The father's not doing well. So they, for whatever reason, decided not to do the auto road. Went down to the Great Gulf and didn't make it super far, honestly. So apparently, they redirected after they somehow they got her to the auto road, got her down. The father's still out there. So after they got her off of the mountain, they started hiking up the Great Gulf Trail one direction, and then there was another Mount Washington State Park staff member that left to go down Chandler Brook, and they were basically just kind of sweeping. Eventually, and they were worried about this guy because his situation was deteriorating and the weather wasn't great. So I guess they were able to hike down to him and then hike up the Great Gulf. And around 1 in the morning, 1:15 in the morning, they located him. He had responded to whistle blasts, and it doesn't look like he had any of the essentials here. I can't read this to see if he had. Oh yeah, here we go. So he had lack of additional clothing, no headlamp or supplies necessary for an overnight stay. So they were like, we got to go find this guy.
Right.
They found him very close to the Chandler Brook Great Gulf Trail system, and then eventually they got an ATV up to the Osgood Trail Junction to meet him. So this is not, you're talking like, I think about 3 or 4 miles up the Great Gulf Trail from the trailhead to get to Chandler Brook.
Right.
And then from Chandler Brook, where they found him, back to Osgood is maybe about 1.5 miles, 2 miles. I mean, granted, like you can't get an ATV out that far because there's one of those bridges that goes over the Peabody River, I think. But I mean, we're not talking that far. And this guy is 1:15 in the morning. They found him. They didn't get to Osgood Trail until 5:15. So it took 4 hours for them to go like 1.5 miles with this guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the time frame on this one is amazing. So 9:30 a.m., and then apparently they get out around 6 a.m. That's a long mission. But back to his gear, there's a comment here. It says that they found him. He was very cold, tired, and wet, and the soles of his boots had fallen off. That's a question mark in my head.
Well, I have the answer for you there. And this actually came up on one of the social media posts on the Facebook page.
Okay.
I actually know I can speculate exactly what happened here because I had an incident with my friend Tom, who I've talked about a few times. We hike a lot together. My theory on this is that it's reasonably common for people to have hiking boots that they'll use. Hiking boots are not inexpensive, and I think my guess when I hear that like there's a gear failure like this is I think a dry rot every time, because my guess is that this guy probably has a nice pair of hiking boots. He bought them years ago, probably is not a very frequent hiker,
Gotcha.
Let them sit in his closet for X amount of years. Eventually they just dry rot. You get them out on a hike, and what ends up happening is the glue
The
and
leather's toast and everything else.
The leather's toast, and then everything just disintegrates. As a matter of fact, the reason I know this is because me and my friend Tom, hiking down Huntington Ravine one time, and we ran into a lady who, the exact same thing she explained to us. Basically, she was going on this hike with a friend. She never goes hiking. She had her parents FedEx her old hiking boots, and she got up into Hermit Lake, and on the way there, like her hiking boots just fell apart. So luckily we had duct tape, and we were able to help her out. We hiked her down, stuck with her. She was like, oh, well, I'm fine. We were like, no, we'll stay with you just in case. Eventually, like, the duct tape broke, and I think Tom had to actually give her his shoes, and he barefooted it out for the last half mile or so. But that's my guess is what happened with this guy, is he just got dry rot in the boots.
Yeah, so there you go. There's another great tip. duct tape, tie wraps. These things can come in really handy in a pinch.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense,
No
though.
doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing about this that I will call out is this idea of like not being able to go on the auto road. So maybe somebody from the auto road's listening and they can tell me otherwise. I don't know what the rule is if you're going to go right from the bottom and hike up. I still think you can do it.
I
don't
thought
think
so,
there's
too.
any.
I mean, I've done
I can
it.
tell you.
I've done it a number of
done it.
times. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it plenty of times training for the Mount Washington Auto Road race. But my advice, if anybody ever does want to hike the auto road and they are nervous about dealing with like that bottom gate section there, what you can do is park at Pinkham Notch and take Old Jackson Road. That's another trail that's like a flat approach. That'll get you out to the 2 mile mark of the auto road. And then you can just go up from there. And it's easier to deal with parking in Pinkham anyway.
Yeah. So to wrap this one up, it really goes into the 10 essentials and just gives a plug for that. You really got to be ready for this type of terrain, this type of weather. The 10 essentials should be in your pack. Go to hikesafe.com and you can review that. And we talk about these things fairly frequently, but make sure you have that stuff.
Definitely. And speaking of Hike Safe, remember I was telling you how I'm trying to get that guy that's like crusading
Yes.
to make sure that everybody has to buy a hiking license, just like the hunters and the fishermen. This story is dedicated to him. So I'm trying to get him on. I haven't. Like, he said he was going to be at the Northwoods Law softball game.
Oh.
Are you going to that?
No, I don't know if Northwoods is part of that. I think it's just Maine versus New Hampshire, if I remember correctly.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
Yeah, well, Northwoods filmed it a couple years back, but I don't think they're associated with this one this time around. But that's always a blast, from what I hear.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it, but he was like, basically, I'm going to be there. We can have a sit down, and I'm like, if I can go, I'll definitely meet with him, but I don't know if I will. But anyway, this story is for him because we finally have a hiker that got injured, had to call for a rescue, and had a Hike Safe card. So that's good, right?
Yes, it is. That's great.
So it's a pretty like straightforward issue. It's just like New Hampshire woman suffered a leg injury after slipping and falling while descending Mount Madison. She's on Valley Way. 41-year-old female hiker from Bennington, New Hampshire. Coming down Valley Way, she had done Adams and Madison, pretty standard hike, and she slipped on a wet log. And
it happens.
I guess she's a pretty experienced hiker. I've seen the name around. And she basically said to the rescuers she was sorry, but like she heard a snap and she couldn't put any weight on her leg after the incident. So she was an experienced hiker, and she couldn't move, and she knew enough. Like, she made the right calls. You can't drag your ass off the mountain if you're you got something broken. So she had a Hike Safe card, and she ended up, I guess this thing happened around 3:30. She made it to the staging area at, I'm assuming Appalachia at 11 p.m. So again, like, these things just don't happen quickly.
And simultaneously, another one?
Yeah. So this was the press release for this one here, and then at the bottom of it, I've never seen them do this before, but they put a second notice on here saying that there's 2 ill-prepared hikers. So when they were dealing with this carryout, they got a second search and rescue call for 2 unidentified males who were off trail with poor cell service, and they don't have the identification for them yet. So I'm sure next week we'll be able to get more details. But they were wet, cold, and did not have headlamps. Stop me if you heard this before. But these guys were on the Great Gully Trail on King Ravine. So
Holy moly.
either they took a wrong turn or they just way out of their element. So at the time of this press release, volunteers were hiking down to King Ravine, attempting to find these 2 hikers and bring them back to the summit so that they could make their way to Madison Spring Hut for the night with headlamps. So
I'm assuming they went back up Great Gully and then around the rim. Because if they,
I'm assuming that seems to be the plan. Is like they're going to find these 2 on Great Gully, hike up, and then bring them to the Madison Spring Hut to warm up for the night. But
wow,
what What a disaster. I do know, I will tell you, like I was hiking Great Gully last summer, and I'll never forget, like I turned the corner and there was a whole group of guys there, and they were fine, but one of them was like, is this the Valley Trail? And I was like, you mean Valley Way? I'm like,
Oh boy.
no, you couldn't be more far away from Valley Way if you tried, but
Yeah.
they made it up. They did fine.
Huh.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah, and that's one trail off of a series of trails within King Ravine, and that's a rugged place, but it's beautiful. King's Ravine, excuse me. So yeah, do some research about that. There's some beautiful stuff in there for hiking.
Yeah. There's basically like two ways up that head wall. You've got the King Ravine Trail, which is like kind of wide open slabs and scree field, and then there's the Great Gully, which is more like, I would liken it more to like the Sphinx Trail. It's like more enclosed a little bit. It's got better views, but it's kind of enclosed.
Yeah, very popular skiing trail in the winter too. A lot of the skiers barrel down that. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's out of my league.
So is that
So I
a
guess-
shame or no shame?
Well, let me see here. So obviously, like Pennsylvania, father and daughter are definitely a shame. Leg injury is no shame. And then these two lost hikers are probably going to be a shame, but I don't know. Maybe there's some more info that will come out. But I got another good one for you.
All right.
This is just posted on social media, so there's no corroboration here, but we're going to go with it. Apparently, there were two hikers that broke into a car on the summit of Mount Washington. So this was posted. Yeah.
What the hell?
So this was posted by somebody in the 4,000 footer group, and it was actually shared on our Facebook group too. But two hikers broke into a car on the summit of Mount Washington last night to have a place to sleep. They apparently cooperated with authorities this morning. Who are the authorities on Mount Washington?
That's a good question. I mean, that's
Is it like the maintenance guys? I don't know.
the authorities. I mean,
But they Well, here's why they cooperated with the authorities. They were asking for a ride down in the morning. So they must have gotten in trouble, got tired. They broke into a car and decided to sleep there. And then when they were identified, they asked for a ride down.
wow, that's insane. And no
I've never heard
details,
that
huh?
before. No, I'm digging. I'm going to try to see if I can get more info. on
Did
this
they
one
have
for next
any
week,
like catalytic converters in their packs or anything? Or
I hope not. But just goes to show no vehicles. Who's parking their car up there overnight, by the way? Is that even a thing?
I really don't know. That we're breaking so much new ground in this podcast that this is some stuff I've never considered before. That's amazing.
Well,
I don't know
what
if
do you
you
do
can
if you
park
get a
there.
search and rescue for a vehicle break on the summit of Mount Washington?
I mean, is it possible to park up there and then just leave your car and go hike and just leave it and come back the next day? Probably.
I guess.
Huh.
I don't know.
That's really interesting. We have to
Yeah.
get some details here about how this auto road works.
Yeah. If you're one of those two guys that got busted for breaking into a car, reach out to us, and we want to have you on the show. I want this breakdown on this one.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All right. So that's it for search and rescue. Got one more, but I do have one more news story.
Okay.
Do you remember I was talking about how I saw a little girl on Owl's Head? She's like a 4-year-old girl named Scarlett,
Right.
and she's like hiking all the 4,000 footers.
Yes. Yeah.
So she finished the list.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, I think I heard about this from a few people secondhand.
Yeah. So she's a 4-year-old little girl named Scarlett, and her trail name is Littlefoot, and she's completed the 4,000 footer list. So WMUR had like a video montage or like an interview with her, and like her grandmother and her mom were hiking with her most of the time, and like the grandmother was basically like, most of the time she was pretty good. She had her moments, but overall, she seemed pretty happy. I saw her on Owl's Head slide. I was like ready to cry. She seemed a lot happier than I was when I was going up that thing. So
Good. Well, I was going to say, I mean, I've taken my young kids up different hikes, and they weren't very happy. I'm glad this little kid is enjoying it, and I hope they don't push her too hard, because that's some grueling stuff for a little one.
Yeah. Well, she's that age, so like she probably won't remember a lot of this, so they'll have to do another round for her to remember it. But it's pretty good. She sounds like she had a good time mostly. But I know the grandmother listens because I think one of them commented on the Instagram page. So hopefully, if somebody from Scarlett's family is listening, I want to just send a quick note to. I want to say something to Scarlett directly. So hopefully you can turn this on. But Scarlett, this is your buddy Mike. Because you completed the 4,000 footers, I want you to tell your grandmother and your mother that they need to take you to Disney World. Enough of this hiking nonsense. That's too much hard work. You want to go to Disney World. That's the next adventure for you, all right? So tell them you sacrifice for them to do all this hiking. You want to go to Disney.
That's fair trade. Yeah, I can't.
Right?
I can't
Take
argue
the kid to
with that.
Disney.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife's leaving in October for a week. You can go with her. You can sneak in her pack. It's totally cool.
Yeah.
No problem.
Exactly. There's mountains there. There's Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, Mount Everest. She can do them all. So anyway, congratulations, Littlefoot.
Yeah, congrats.
And, yeah, I don't know what's next for her. But,
Big things, I guess.
Yeah. It's like I'm just about to finish my 4,000 footer list. I'm like a 4-year-old just did it. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's hard to process that, really. I mean, when did she start walking? Like, what, 6 months to a year?
A year usually.
Oh,
pretty good.
God, help me.
It's pretty good. But like I always think like, oh, I did the 4,000 footer list, but like so did this 4-year-old.
Huh.
So
Wow.
she's definitely a tough little kid to do that. So congrats.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Good job. Maybe we can get her in here to
right.
talk about it.
Yeah, someday. We'll see. She gets a little bit older. But that's it for the hiking news, and we will monitor this, and hopefully they'll be taking her to Disney. I get a feeling if the parents are like this into hiking, like most people are not into hiking and also into going to Disney World, so we'll see. They'll probably want to take her to like the Grand Canyon or a national park, which is cool too.
Right.
All right, so we want to move on to segment 3 here and talk about food?
Yeah, let's do it. This is...
Or do you really not want to talk about food?
Oh my God, I'm starving. But I just feel terrible. So I'm gonna grind through this for the sake of the audience.
Slasher's hiking topic of the week.
So we all know, well, I think most of us know that adequate food, water, and nutrition in general is critical to power up and maintain and replenish your body during hiking, before, during, and after. But I think what we're going to do here tonight, Mike, is talk about what should you do and what should you eat, how much, how often, when you're actually pounding the pavement, so to speak. Everybody is different. Everybody has different needs. Everybody has different responses to different foods. You know, I may eat some carbohydrates and feel sluggish. Some people may have medical conditions, take diabetes, for instance. So there's so many different factors. Food allergies, nuts, soy, dairy, everything else. You know best, ultimately, what you should be eating on the trail. So that's the first foundation that you want to consider. I mean, what we're going to talk about here is secondary. You know the best, but here are some sort of common knowledge, or maybe, what do you think, Mike? Just, I don't know, accepted general norms of how you should approach a hike?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how normal I am, but I guess I'll find out from this segment.
Well, for me personally, it's like I have food allergies. I cannot eat eggs. I avoid them like the plague. Most milks, I typically do, almond, stuff like that, gluten. So I'm starting from a place where I have to be really picky what I eat on trail, or I'm not going to have a great hike, and I'm going to bum out everybody else that's with me. No pun intended. So how about you? Do you have any particular food allergies or things you avoid like the plague, or just don't work for you on the trail?
I don't actually have any food allergies that I'm aware of, and I'll pretty much eat anything. I don't have any issues eating anything in particular at all. Just if it's food, I'll consume it.
Oh, that's great. You're blessed.
I guess, yeah. So, but I do. As a matter of fact, I mean, just looking at this, like, I do eat a lot of like peanuts, pistachios, and cheese. So I think I am sort of on the opposite end of that spectrum when it comes to, your sensitivities, because I just don't have any sensitivities to that. Matter of fact, sometimes I'll even bring some hard boiled eggs as like an early snack. I try to like whatever I'm going to bring that's like heavy. I try to bring that like and eat it first thing if I can.
How often should you eat? How often do you eat while you're hiking, Mike?
So I have a problem when I'm hiking is most of the time I don't. I think it may be because I come from a running background, but most of the time I will have to force myself to eat. So I'm sort of like heads down. I've got to close this distance and finish up, and unless I really stop and force myself to eat, I won't eat. But I think how often you should eat is the rule. And I think what works best for almost everybody is eat frequently and small amounts. So you don't want to like stuff yourself to death stopping. And I feel like when you're doing these activities, like I look at it like, cycling is another activity that I've done quite a bit of over the years. And, the rule with cycling is that you should be fueling yourself like consistently every 20 minutes, half hour, while you're burning calories just to keep up with it. So I think the more you can eat when you're on the trail, the better. And I think that's one of the tricks that you want to learn is like make sure that your gear complements your need to continue to consume food, which means that you should have a lot of pockets on your shoulder straps. You should have food that's easily available to you, whether it's on your shoulder straps or if it's in your pockets themselves. Yeah. And then you should be packing food that's easy to sort of eat on the go while you're hiking, because you don't want to rely on all your food being sit-down meals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I think the consensus that I found online was that you should definitely eat something, whether it's a snack, just to keep it going every single hour. That keeps your blood glucose stable, keeps it elevated, and that's what feeds your muscles. I mean, your heart, everything. So that gets converted into your energy. So every hour seems to be the rule.
Yeah, and that matches up with what I typically try to do.
Okay. Now, how much should you eat? And this is obviously very variable. It depends on the intensity of your hike. A day hiker will need less than, say, an AT through hiker covering 30 miles a day. A common suggestion that I found was that 300 calories per hour may be a good average for a day hike. And then for backpackers, you may be looking at about 2,500 to 4,500 calories per day per person. And that was based upon an REI site that I dug up. That's a lot of food, but I get it. I mean, when you're through hiking, you're expending so much energy. Your body's like a furnace burning through those calories. And, less so with a day hiker, but still the demand for your body to get those calories is pretty high. So 300 calories per hour. And still that boggles my mind. I just cannot eat that much food.
Yeah, I don't know if I could. Yeah, I don't know if I could either. I think I sort of look at it differently, like as far as how much I should eat. I think when I'm doing a backpacking trip, my goal is to eat enough food during the day where I'm not like starving and gorging myself at dinner. But like a day hike, typically I will, I'll just, a lot of times I'm not hungry, so I'm like forcing myself to eat, so I don't eat as much as I probably would otherwise. But I'll usually bring, like, depending on the mileage, I just bring a certain amount of food with me with a goal of like bringing enough food to keep me fueled, but like I don't want to have any extra food that I've carried with me. That
extra weight.
Extra weight. I mean, I want to bring enough food that I'm going to eat, but not have a bunch left over, because it just ends up getting thrown out or just sits in my pack for the next time and it becomes gross.
Yeah. Well, the next thing here is what kinds of food. This is a huge topic too. I mean, basically the foundation is bring what you like to eat. Don't bring a bunch of stuff that you hate and you're not going to eat. You're like, oh, this trail bike looks fantastic and it's just terrible. In general, stick with foods rich in protein, complex carbohydrates, as well as just anything that contains high levels of vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes. You get a lot of that from your fluids too, if you're smart. Some examples: grilled chicken and veggies, protein shakes, bananas, apples, trail mixes, hard cheeses, peanut butter, energy bars. For backpackers, ready-to-eat dehydrated meals can be pretty good, especially high in salt and stuff like that, and the electrolytes that you may need. If you're a die-hard junk foodie, try to add in some fresh food as well. I mean, your body will appreciate it and would definitely work better for you. Seasonal considerations are important too. Your body in the winter is a furnace. It's burning calories to stay warm, so you're going to have to up your intake during the winter, and that's where fatty foods can come in, good fats, whether it be peanut butter, things of that nature. My personal favorite, I am addicted to these tuna packets, these flavored tuna packets. They've been a lifesaver for me for cramps and things like that. They're delicious. They're light. Apples, bananas, hard cheeses. I can do the hard cheese. It's just some certain cheeses I can't. How about you, Mike? What's typically in your menu?
Yeah, I mean, usually, like almost every hike I go on, I've put together a bag of. It's a mix of peanut butter M&Ms and pistachios. So that's like I call it the pocket food. So that's like usually sitting in my like hip pocket of my backpack or like the shoulder strap of my backpack, and that's what I'll munch on during the hike. But look, for me, I'll have cheese. I'll put together like peanut butter crackers. Sometimes I'll just take like a peanut butter cracker, pre-made, or sometimes I'll just make them with rich crackers. Peanut butter is very high in protein and it fills me up pretty quickly. I'll usually have Cliff Bars, and I usually like to take something kind of heavy and salty. So if it's a day hike or even a backpacking trip, like I'll get a chicken parm sub and I'll just carry that with me, and that'll be like sort of I'll split that up and have that over the course of the day. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll even bring like a Tupperware of like pasta and meatballs, and I'll have that. I don't even mind eating it cold. I'll have pizza as well. I'll wrap that up and bring that cold as well. Or I'll have hamburger patties. I'll just eat those. And, that's usually like I try to have like a heavy, salty sort of meal like that to keep me going. And I think if I'm snacking during the actual hike, then I stop at the summit and I have that big meal, then I'm just snacking on the way out. Like usually I feel fine.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So, and the way I look at like when it comes to weight management too, I look at people talk about like, oh, bring a luxury item. My luxury item is almost always extra food that I like that's heavier than like what you would normally eat. So that's why like I have no problem throwing a chicken parm sub in or a calzone or pasta or meatballs, because I'm like giving up weight in other areas so that I can bring that heavier food.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Yeah. And then, one other thing too is just that's mostly day hiking. When it comes to backpacking, and again, I don't do a ton of backpacking, but I look at food as my luxury item for backpacking, and I'll bring like Chef Boyardee, like not the cans because those are too heavy, but like the plastic containers of Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
In the winter when we do overnights, my friend Jonathan, he sort of turned me on to this, is they'll make a stew with potatoes and vegetables and meat, and then he will simmer the stew down so that it's like basically like no liquid in it or just a little bit of liquid, and then put that in the freezer. We'll all take a piece of the stew in a Ziploc bag where it's frozen. Mm-hmm. Once we start our hike, it'll stay frozen in the winter. We mostly do this in the winter. And then by the time we're ready for dinner, we'll just basically just put a little bit of water in our pots and then melt that stew down and cook that. And that's a nice hearty meal with some sourdough bread that my friend Tom will usually bring. And that really like hits home when you're cold and backpacking.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good. You're carrying all that extra stuff for stoves and everything else. Those are the seasonal considerations. But even you take it midsummer, like just cooking up stuff. I don't backpack too often.
We wouldn't do the stew, but we wouldn't do the stew. Like this last time I went backpacking, I brought like 3 or 4 things of the Chef Boyardee. Yeah. most of the thru hikers, I was talking to them, like they all will bring ramen for the weight to the caloric content is like the best thing for backpackers. And what they'll typically do is they'll bring flavoring. So they'll bring garlic powder,
spices.
They'll have like Parmesan cheese and other spices and oils, and most of them will just eat ramen and then spice it up with those toppings. So that's another option. I don't backpack enough where I would worry about that much weight. I'd prefer to carry a little bit of extra weight and just have a nice meal.
Oh my God, I'm so effing hungry.
You can make it, Stomp. We're almost done. Almost done.
I can't eat until tomorrow at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
You'll be fine. You're gonna get that hose stuck up your ass, and you'll be great.
Oh God, what a life, right?
Hydration.
What a life.
Hydration. We're moving on.
Okay, hydration. There are a huge amount of options. Hot in the winter, cold in the summer. Just make sure you're drinking things that give you those electrolytes. Obviously, water is important, but if you're just chugging water all day long without getting those electrolytes, either by food or by some drink, then you can actually set yourself up for trouble. So some of these sports drinks, Pedialyte, Gatorade, fantastic options just to get those electrolytes in you. A lot of people now are drinking hot chocolate, broths, pickle juice. They drink the vinegar from the pickles and everything else. As a matter of fact, Danielle had a pickle bag today with some vinegar, so that's really good. What else? Oh yes, if you're into the Summit Brew, just be aware that that is a diuretic and you are going backwards in terms of your dehydration. So Summit Brew's cool, but just if you're in a rough state to begin with, that may not necessarily help you. There is another way that you can assess your hydration level, and I think that is important when you're talking about, do I need water or do I need a sports drink? And that's just the color of your urine. Fun topic, but rough rule of thumb, if you're overhydrated, your urine's going to be just clear. If you're at a really optimal or good level of hydration, it may be very light, pale yellow. And then from there, the more dehydrated your urine gets, it's going to be dark brown, light brown all the way down to dark brown. And that's when you're really dehydrated. So keep an eye on that little pro tip.
What if my urine's green?
Oh, jeez. Boy, you might have some liver issues.
It's St. Patty's Day. You've been drinking too many green beers.
Pump.
Yeah, exactly. Put that in there. I will just say, as far as hydration goes for me, like I almost exclusively drink water, but what I've been doing lately is sometimes I'll buy like a Gatorade before I go on a hike, and I actually really like Gatorade on my hikes, but I bought, it's a little bit heavy and clunky, so one of the things I've recently done is I bought like a giant thing of powdered Gatorade at BJ's Wholesale, and then I can just put like, I bring like 2 things of like little powder for Gatorade with me, and then if I feel like I want some flavor in my water, I can just put those little powders in there, shake it up, and I have one soft water bottle that I use for my Gatorade mix, and then I've got one that's just for clean water, and I've got those in my shoulder straps. So I usually have one flavor and one water. But you can do this with Gatorade. You can do it with like those Nun tablets. There's a bunch of different things that you can do to give yourself some electrolytes and some flavor in your liquid.
Yeah. My preference is for like the Pedialytes because there's less sugar. When I eat carbs or sugar, I crash. I just like really feel sluggish. So that's something to consider. I think some of these newer brands are shying away from the heavier Gatorade. I know Gatorade makes like a 0 cal and all that stuff, but then you're talking about the artificial sweeteners and things. So just something to think about.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we have? Any other comments on that?
That's it.
All right.
That's it for hydration.
Okay. So the last one I wanted to throw in there was if you're a vegan, a vegetarian, I am not really up on this, but and I find it amazing that people can live that lifestyle, to be honest with you, especially like an athlete. But I've seen like what what are some of these boxers that are vegetarians, and some of the wrestlers that are vegetarians, and they're just powerhouses. So I know it's possible, but I think it takes a little more effort maybe to find the foods. In my brief research for this little segment here, obviously there are companies that cater to those lifestyles, those food choices. There are many that make vegan, vegetarian offerings. Some of the companies that I found were Larabar, Cliff Bar, as we all know, 88 Acres. Apart from that, if you wanted to get away from the processed bars and things like that, you could go with like your nut butters. There's actually powdered hummus, which you add water. This is pretty interesting. You add water and mix in this powder, and then voila, you've got hummus. And then if you have chips or crackers, you could dip it with hummus. Finally, you could do your trail mixes. I know that, say, Trader Joe's or Whole Foods have a huge selection of trail mixes, and you can find organic and vegetarian and whatever else. So you have options, people. Don't distress. And that's all I have for the food. I know this is a gigantic topic, but we wanted to just broach the topic here on an episode. And when you add in the whole seasonal thing, it becomes a whole other challenge. Like, how do you keep your water from freezing? All this stuff. So we'll tackle that stuff on another episode.
Yeah, we're going to do an intro to winter hiking, and I look at like a thermos with hot chocolate that's almost like a safety measure for you. Like, you should always have that on hand when you're hiking, just for mitigating cases where you might run into somebody that is dealing with hypothermia. But like, those are the things we can cover in future episodes for sure. But the bottom line is that I think as I'm reading through this stomp, the themes I'm seeing are that people have different focus on what they want to eat, but you should be eating frequently. You should ensure that you are consuming enough calories when you do eat, and just make sure that you stay hydrated so that you're not peeing brown and getting yourself in trouble here. But like, there's
in a nutshell
a lot of options, and everybody's different. But I think at the end of the day, like for me, the heavier the food, the better, because I can just, I don't want to carry that much, and I just want to get as much bang for my buck when it comes to eating as I can when I'm on trail.
Excellent. Well, this is a good one. I like no guests.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good to have no guest. Although we do need, if anybody wants to come on and they feel like they got a good topic, don't be shy, hit us up. We're happy to have people sit in.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't have a great topic, you can just sit in, and it's not a bad thing. We want somebody that's been hiking, I guess, so they can share some secrets with us. We need to find some new spots where we're always giving secrets away. We want to get some.
That's true. Awesome.
All right, Tom. So I'll let you go. It's going to be a rough day for you tomorrow with the colonoscopy. So good luck, and we'll get a full rundown. Hopefully, you can take some pictures and put it on the Instagram page for us.
That'd be wonderful, wouldn't it?
Yeah. We want to see your inside your intestines.
I'll remember this when it's your turn. You're creeping up on there fast.
Well, I've had some. So the last time I had to go into that area, my doctor said that I have the prostate of a 60-year-old, so I'm on my way pretty quickly.
Excellent. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, we'll call it a wrap. Good job.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered on today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information on slasrpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until next time, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words that describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hill!
Here's Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.